Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show we look at the highs and the lows from the weekend's football. Joining me to break it down this week, it's Joseph Tomlinson. How are you, sir?
Yeah, still a little bit tired. I obviously stayed up to watch Tyson Fury demolish Deontay Wilder for a third time. The King rightfully taking his crown, absolutely buzzing. Maybe the best fight I've ever seen live. So still a little bit tired from that, but not too bad. How are you?
You know, I demolished karaoke 3 hours before the fight. Didn't make the fight. I was fast asleep by the time he put Deontay Wilder on the canvas. But yes, Robbie Williams was getting banged out. Anyway, let's move on to the football. Let's start with a talking point like we always do on this show. Then we'll make our way to our winner, our loser, and our moment of the week. If you agree with us, hit like on this video. If you disagree, get in the comments. I will be in there for the first hour, as always. Mon amis. Right, the talking point I've got down here is France winning the Nations League. Really exciting stuff. At Havers Fleeted, this came from. And of course, they came from 2 goals down against Belgium in the semi-final to win 3-2. They came from a goal down in the final against Spain to clinch said title. And now Les Bleus have become the first international side to win the Euros, the World Cup, and the Nations League. I mean, I take great umbrage with people putting the Nations League in and amongst that company.
International Community Shield, mate. The International Community Shield.
Oh, it's taken us 30 seconds and we're already disrespecting half the football that happened over the weekend. Anyway, let's go through some of the talking points, Joe, because I don't think we need to, really break down France's championship winning campaign, do we? Let's talk the offside goal first and foremost. Like, what did you make of Mbappe breaking through to score that winning goal? Of course, the controversy was that it came off Eric Garcia. Would you have flagged?
God's sake. I mean, this is one of the worst rules in football, isn't it? Because obviously it was chalked off because Eric Garcia made a deliberate action towards the ball. Therefore, it is a second phase when Kylian Mbappe receives it. But he doesn't make the deliberate action if Kylian Mbappe isn't in the offside position. So therefore, the offside player is interfering with play. The ruling is so stupid. It's beyond belief. Obviously, by the letter of the law, yes, it's offside. But if you actually use common sense, then he's clearly in an offside position interfering with play because Eric Garcia wouldn't be going for the ball if Mbappe wasn't running in behind. I just think it's absolutely stupid and it should have been flagged for offside. That law needs changing rapidly.
Well, you know who agreed with you? Cesar Azpilicueta. Let's hear from him right now.
Monitor is there to use it. I encourage every time, and every time we have meetings with the referees, we say the same. And I don't know why he doesn't go to the monitor and he sees by himself if he's deliberate play or not, because the offside is very clear. And the referee, watching the reviews in the office, says that he can play the ball, which I don't think so. But I don't know why, instead of being the referee who is here on the pitch, who feels the pace of the game, who can make this decision with the monitor. So that's what I'm more disappointed with.
Now, of course, there were several things that happened in this high-octane fixture, Joseph. But I wanted to talk to you about Rafa Varane's injury because, of course, he was subbed off at half-time with a suspected abductor injury, which normally takes around 2 weeks to heal from if it's something called, Tier 1, Grade 1. Now, United's upcoming fixtures, Leicester, Atalanta, Liverpool, Tottenham, all happen from the 16th of October to the 30th, I believe. Now, this could spell really bad news for Ollie, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, it's made even worse, obviously, by the fact that Harry Maguire is currently injured. So, to lose Varane and Maguire is absolute mud for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer with such a pressurised situation happening at Old Trafford. Obviously, the performances have been so poor recently. But he has classically bounced back in pressure moments, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, when people have been calling for him to be sacked. He's suddenly put together a run, and to lose both his centre-backs just as he hopes to do that is a big, big blow, especially when the replacements are likely to be Victor Lindelof and Eric Bailly. I mean, Phil Jones is technically back in the first-team picture now, so could he get some minutes? I doubt it, but nevertheless, to have such vital players to the side injured is just really, really bad news. Fingers crossed it is only a 1 week and he pushes back and pushes through the injury. I expect Harry Maguire might come back ahead of sort of the term he was initially diagnosed with because of how he is. Often he plays through injuries, he plays through pain. He played for about 8 weeks with a major ankle problem towards the back end of last season, I believe. So I expect Harry Maguire to be ahead of schedule. And it wouldn't shock me if Rafa Varane suddenly appears a week early just because Ollie knows he needs to win a number of games. But yeah, not good news for United. And that fixture list is tough. It is tough.
Right. He won't be returning ahead from schedule if he keeps playing through injuries. I'll tell you that. Now,
I know.
Of those fixtures, Joseph, so Leicester, Atalanta, Liverpool, Tottenham, how many does Ollie have to win just to get through that period without inviting any further pressure? So would you say Leicester, Atalanta and Tottenham, and the result against Liverpool is just kind of, it is what it is, it's up in the air?
I think if he wins 2 of them and draws another, then he's absolutely fine. I mean, if he lost all 4, then you can see the pressure really, really heavily building, can't you? Tottenham is going to be a really tough game because I actually think Tottenham are going to be a lot better against the teams that are going to dominate the ball and want the ball and going to put pressure on them because they're going to want to play on the counter-attack, aren't they, under Nuno? So that's going to be a very tough game. We know Liverpool's going to be absolutely blockbuster and we cannot afford to lose against Atalanta. That Champions League group is already on a knife edge. Atalanta is a huge must-win game. The Champions League, Ollie is largely underwhelmed in. We know his win percentage is extremely low there. Cannot afford to go out of the group stages yet again this year. So Atalanta, I think, is a must-win. I think Leicester, United should be winning that game, given Leicester's start to the season. And I think Tottenham could kind of go either way. I expect Liverpool to beat United. I think they are a better team than United right now. So I think 2 wins and a draw would satisfy. Anything better than that is a positive, and anything worse than that's a negative.
There we have it. We had the prognosis from Joseph Tomlinson. But what do you guys at home think? Will Ollie be out of a job if he loses all 4? What does he have to do to, get through? Let me know in the comments below. Let's move on to our first winners then, because unprecedented scenes here, Joseph, on winners and losers. We have 2 winners, because the first winners are us, okay? It's Pat on the Back FC over here for launching a brand new show on Saturday, which you guys really seem to enjoy. It was called Team Talk. It is called Team Talk. We'll be continuing it moving forward. And let's look at a little excerpt from it now, just to whet your appetite.
You can't even use a laptop.
Pakistan.
India.
Yeah.
Let's go for Delhi.
The levels of expectation, you really think that Ollie would survive longer than Vieira this season?
Yeah. There was a period last year where he couldn't hit the back of the net, and that will happen again because he's that young.
He's not the most
So there you go. He said most naturally talented footballer.
Hold on, I said best. Before we move on to our actual winners then, Joseph, which are Scotland, and that comes from Stuart A. Kirk. Did you enjoy Team Talk? What did you make of it?
Mate, do you know what? I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I'm interested to hear what the guys thought of it at home as well, and whether or not we should axe any rounds or keep other rounds, and which was their favourite round, because it is early doors on that show. But yeah, I actually thought it was class. I just enjoy the debate element, and I think that's maybe something we don't do enough of on Football Daily. So if you did enjoy it, let us know in the comments. Also, let us know what maybe sort of round you want to see us introduce or take away.
Average view duration for 40,000 views this morning, 20 minutes. Love
Wow.
that. That is some faithful...
38-minute episode as well, isn't it? So that's good.
Exactly. Faithful watching back home. Appreciate that very much. Right, let's move on to the Scotland game then, because there was so much drama in this game. And before you sort of identify the key player of the game, Tomlinson, I've just sort of cleared up what this victory means for Scotland, for the guys at home. So, of course, they followed up that magnificent away win over Austria in World Cup qualifiers with a huge home result against Israel, beating the visitors 3-2 in the most dramatic fashion one could ask for. I mean, Scott McTominay's belly button securing the 3 points in the 94th minute, sending Hampton into absolute raptures. And Austin McPhee, the new set-piece coach on the sideline, delighted because that Hendry, peeling off to the front post really worked, and sending it back across goal to the back post. You can tell Scotland have brushed up in those sort of areas. Now, Steve Clarke's men, 4 points ahead of third place Israel in Group F with just 3 games remaining. And the next 2 are against the Faroe Islands and Moldova. Now, both are away, but Scotland should be wrapping up 6 points there. And victories in those games would put Scotland a big, big step closer to their first World Cup since 1998, I believe. Second place in the group, because, of course, Denmark have absolutely ran away with it. I think they've got 7 victories out of 7. Would secure the Tartan Army one of 12 places in March's 2-round single-leg playoffs. Now, that's an awful lot of words right there. But yeah, 3 teams will basically get through to Qatar through the back door, through these playoffs. And if Scotland want to be one of those, they've got to do the business in the group stage. before the campaign's end. Joe, our key player wasn't amongst the goal scorers, but who is it?
Yeah, well, firstly, I think the key player was bloody atmosphere in the stadium, because it's absolutely
12th, man. Come
bouncing
on.
in there, wasn't it? It was rocking, man. Honestly, when the McTominay goal went in, I think it was Ali McCoist on comms, wasn't it? He could barely even speak and hear him. Didn't know what was going on, but yeah, the atmosphere in there was amazing. But yeah, I will touch on Billy Gilmour, who was exceptional on the day. Chelsea really do have some very exciting young central midfield talent coming through in him and Conor Gallagher. And I think those two paired together would complement each other really, really well, to be honest with you. In the game, 93 touches, that was the most. 81 passes completed, again, the most. 28 of them as well were in the opposition's final third, which is, I think, very interesting, given that Billy Gilmour classically is thought amongst most football fans as more of a defensive midfielder, but he's putting up over 2 dribbles in this game as well, so he proves that he can get out of tight areas really, really well. He's not necessarily the best tackler, is he? I think he actually attempted 6 and completed 0 in this game, but he doesn't have to be, because that's what a player like Scott McTominay is in there for, who's going to be a bit more dirty and a bit more sort of grungy in the midfield of the park. Do you know what I mean? So I thought Billy Gilmour was absolutely outstanding. I also want to highlight John McGinn, who can't stop scoring for Scotland at this stage. 4 goals in 6 World Cup qualifiers, but he should have had 2. Is that right? When who was it who cut it back?
Ryan Christie cut it across the
goal. It was Ryan Christie cut it back. He had to score that. And I'll tell you who else had to. Lyndon Dykes should have had about 8 in this game. The penalty was shameful. It was an awful penalty. And the header at the back stick from the Kieran Tierney clipped cross. Head it down, man.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit more forgivable. But the penalty, nothing says I'm going to hit it down the middle like not looking at the goal once during your run up.
It was unbelievable, wasn't it? And it was just like classic, like I'm going to hit, make sure I hit the target and hit it with power. And the keeper just read it all ends up, didn't he? So yeah, huge shout out to Billy Gilmour in this game. But I also think John McGinn deserves an awful lot of credit.
Yeah, I think Rangers fullback Nathan Patterson deserves a little shout out as well. He had a really tough first 45 minutes actually, but much improved after the second half. And I did think Billy Gilmour helped him in that regard. Like he was feeding him an awful lot down that right hand side. I think he ended up with the most take-ons completed in the game. So he was important to Scotland when it came to probing that Israel back line as the game went on. Let's move on from Scotland as our first winners to our losers now. Belgium, and this comes from Raphael Adalugbo. And not the best week for the Red Devils, surrendering that 2-goal lead to France in the semi-final, losing 2-1 again to Italy in the third place playoff, which is the same scoreline that the Azzurri beat them by in the Euros when they knocked them out. So it just seems that every time, the pressure is ramped up on what has been coined the golden generation of Belgium, they come undone at the seams a little bit. But to be fair to Martinez, this game didn't really matter. And he rotated the squad pretty heavily, particularly that forward line. I think Vanaken, Batshuayi and Salamakers started. And they looked more lively than Italy in the first 30 minutes, to be fair. Salamakers hit the crossbar. Batshuayi looked very sharp around the box. He's clearly benefiting from regular football in the Turkish Super League. I think he has 4 goal involvements in his first 5 starts. Turkish Super League. Did I say Liga then? That's wrong. And I'm not sure, this will be level too heavily at Martinez losing here. I mean, they're still undefeated in their World Cup qualification campaign. Obviously, Martinez has been linked with the Barcelona job, so they'll probably want to do their utmost to keep him. And, prominent players like Thibaut Courtois they weren't even happy, let's say, that this game was taking place in the first place amongst a very cluttered schedule.
I think this game is just a money game, and we have to be honest about it. This game, we just play it because for the UEFA it's extra money and it's an extra game on TV. This just shows that we played too many games. In June again, 4 Nations League games. Why? Next year we have a World Cup in November. We have to play maybe until the latter stages of June again. We will get injured, and nobody cares about the players anymore. And we in June, after a long season, you will have to play 4 games in the Nations League again. You will have 3 weeks of holiday, and that's not enough for players to be able to continue 12 months of on the highest level. And if we never going to say anything, it's always the same. They don't care about the players; they just care about their pockets, and that's a bad thing if players are not spoken about, And then you hear that now they want to put a European Championship and a World Cup every year. Like when will we get a rest? Never. If we're not robots, it's just more and more games and less rest for us, and nobody cares about us. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, very interesting to hear Thibaut Courtois, and I actually really enjoyed his honesty in that interview. It has to be said, quite a lot of footballers can be very media trained, can't they? Very predictable in their answers, particularly post and pre-match. But I think Thibaut Courtois' honesty really cut through there, and you have to respect what he's saying, because these footballers know their bodies better than anyone else. And if he's saying that he's feeling tired and burnt out, other players will be feeling that as well. As for the Nations League, I do think its concept is actually okay. I actually prefer watching Nations League games to watching what would have been previously meaningless fixtures. These sort of rubbish friendlies where England or whoever were playing absolute dross for no reason. So at least the Nations League gives it some direction. I do agree with Thibaut Courtois, though, that footballers at the moment are playing way too much football, especially coming off the back of 2 coronavirus hit seasons where players had to have really short schedules, a game every 3 days. It just can't continue at that level, and I think you're already starting to see players pick up injuries. Look at Rafa Varane already having to play an awful lot of minutes, goes away to France playing even more minutes, gets injured again. I think that the back-to-back international fixtures at the start of the season, you have 2 international breaks in very short succession, needs changing pretty quickly because the fixtures list is just too tight at this stage, and players are going to get injured consistently. I think that was Courtois' 14th game of the season already, and we're only at the start of October. Players cannot continue to play 60 games a season at 90 minutes for club and country every single year without their bodies getting seriously harmed. And you have to, at the end of the day, these people are employees. You have to take health very seriously, and I'm afraid to say there's too many games in the calendar right now.
Yeah, UEFA having their cake and eating it here. Now, a player is supposed to be with his club 80% of the time and his country 20% of the time, just to give you a general indication of how the calendar is split. But of course, not only have UEFA created a new international team competition, they've also created the Conference League. There's also money spinning, Super League games as well, and people are playing their equivalent of the Community Shield in faraway lands like Saudi Arabia. So players' time with their clubs is just becoming so hectic that by the time they start playing international football as well, like Joe said, they're absolutely shagged. I think using Courtois as a subject, there was around 4.5 weeks between him featuring against Italy in the Euros and his first pre-season game with Real Madrid against AC Milan. Now, I imagine only two of those weeks were time off, right? And I did a little bit of digging. I was telling you before we went live on this show, Joe, a little bit of digging before about how other elite athletes' seasons stack up against footballers. And this figure is from 2017, so it might have changed. But I thought, okay, what's an American sport that's equivalent to football in terms of its physicality, its intensity? And, basketball was the one that I thought of, despite the games being vastly shorter, although you could say that the ball's only in play for X amount of minutes during football. And in 2017 in the NBA, the season's minutes leader was Andrew Wiggins, who played just over 3,000 minutes. Now, that's like across 80 plus games, right? And that'll be the majority of what they do. Now, an elite footballer, if he's lucky, is putting up 3,000 minutes in a league season alone. Never mind, Champions League, Europa League, etc. So I think that's an interesting sort of divergence then. It does show you that footballers are probably playing, 30, 40% too many minutes at current. Far from scientific, but that's just what I've arrived at.
And basketball players get a longer off-season, don't forget. I think it's like 75 days they're off-season in the NBA,
good knowledge from you. I like it.
Which is like over 2 months.
Yeah.
So imagine Courtois having 10 weeks off, for instance, rather than 2.
Well, they're trying. I think it was. I don't know if it was FIFA Pro or when the new World Cup idea was pitched. They're trying to make it mandatory to have, I think, between 4 and 6 weeks off for a footballer now in between seasons. That's something I'd definitely like to see brought in. But what do you guys at home think to the schedules? Let us know in the comments. Let's get some heated debates going. Let's wrap up the show as well on our moment of the week before I start speaking about basketball anymore. I've got 3 for you, Joe. England versus Andorra, featuring the first all-female refereeing team. That felt like a pretty important step in terms of equality in the sport. Rafinha's brilliant Brazil debut, or the fact that a day after calling it on Sunday Vibes, Ralf Rangnick is actually being linked with the sporting director's job at Newcastle.
I mean, it has to be the Newcastle predictions because like, Rangnick is as outrageous. They are obviously watching Sunday Vibes, but also James Tarkowski going to Newcastle. We called that as well. That's also in the episode. James Tarkowski would be their first major signing, and I think that is like the Telegraph are reporting that that's going to happen. So if Rangnick goes, Tarkowski goes, then it'd be unbelievable. But I think it's probably more like Graeme Jones is going to take over in the short term, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's actually breaking news before we started shooting this that the new owners are meeting Bruce and co today, so we might hear some very important news by the end of the day. And of course, our Twitter feed will keep you well informed on that sort of stuff. Have we got anything to plug, Joe, before we wrap this up?
Make sure you watch Team Talk. Like we said, go and watch Team Talk if you haven't already, because it is a fantastic new product.
Lovely. See you next week, guys, and winners and losers. Bye.